Okay. Good evening, Venkat. Hello, sir. Good evening. How's your health? Yes, it's improving, but doctor told me ki go for this uh, boiled kind of means warm water. I hate warm water, but I have to go for it. So it's improving. It's improving. It's better than since last 2 3 days, and thankfully I'm able to sleep right now. Good evening, Jyoti. Okay, so let's start. In the last class, before winding up the session, I told you I'm winding up the discussion on this year's budget allocations. However, if there any important announcement which is made by the government in the budget, if government is going to implement that thing, I will create a video and I'll share with you. Right? I'll create the video and I'll share with you directly. Fine. So, uh, the current year's means upcoming financial year's budget allocation is wind up. Few things which is related to the budget, and it is also part of your complete syllabus of RBI Grade B. Right. So, for example, when I shared that lecture planned on the very first lecture, the first lecture I have discussed this complete lecture plan. Right, lecture plan. So in that lecture plan, if you will see in the union budget, in the union budget, they have mentioned they have mentioned public finance, preparation, presentation, passing, and implementation of budget, fiscal policy, and debt management. Right. So regarding preparation, presentation, passing, and its implementation. Right. This part I have discussed with you already in detail. How budget is presented in the parliament, three accounts of the government of India. Then I told you about the process in the parliament. Right. So all these things I already discussed with you. What is public finance? What is fiscal policy? And debt management. Right. So I will take these three things: public finance, fiscal policy, though I already told you about the fiscal policy, right? But sometimes students are stick with the syllabus. So I will define fiscal policy once again in the context of debt management and in the context of public finance, right? So in the context of all these three topics, I'll start discussion today, and probably discussion will be wind up because it's not very big topic where we have to discuss a lot of things. And after that, I will start some traditional topics of your syllabus. Right, some students have this concern key why traditional topic is not being started of the economy and all. So after that, I'll start with some traditional topics also. Fine. So, first, let's start discussion regarding public finance, fiscal policy, and debt management. Actually, there is no need to discuss separately any of these three. We have in the one discussion we can discuss all these three. That is public finance. Other was fiscal policy, and third was debt, or in other word, public debt management. Public debt management. So what is public finance? What is public finance? First of all, what is finance? What is finance? Can anybody throw a light? What is finance? They can. You want to define what is finance? Many times whenever you will visit a mall where there is a electronic gadget shops where they are selling all these products, you can find a particular standee, and under that standee the bank people or some finance people are standing sitting there, and they write finance is available here in north. यहाँ फाइनेंस की सुविधा उपलब्ध है, right? In south, most of the time I have seen that it is written in the local language, means vernacular language, or in English, finance is available here. So there is a finance. So what do you mean by a finance? Giving some amount on instruct called the finance. Giving some amount, just giving some amount is a finance. So when parents are paying fees for you, are they financing you? Are they financing your education or not? When parents are paying the fee of your tuition fees, school fees, are they financing or not? Answer this question. When the parents are paying the fee of your tuition fees, school fees, whatever they are paying, are they financing your education? Yes or no? Answer. Study of money circulation in economy. Study of money circulation in economy is a finance. Then what is monetary policy? What is money supply? What we study in the money supply? I have a question for you, and question is, when your parents are paying the fee for you on your behalf, they are paying the fee of institution or coaching institution or educational institution, are they financing? Yes or no? Okay, people are giving the definition of finance. Finance is a process of acquiring fund, basically money management. Okay, we don't have to return our parents. Okay, you do not have a means you need not to return that money to your parents, but do you have any liability against them or not? Being as a son, do you feel that you have any liability over your parents? Means you have some responsibility. Shashwat Srivastava saying the money supply is a supply of currency in an economy like M0, M1. So Shashwat, what is finance? If supply of money is parents are paying fees, right? Why? Parents are paying fees. Why? The reason is they want to let you educate, right? So they are paying a money for your education because they want you should be properly literate, educate, and later on, what you can do later on, you can establish yourself as an independent person, right? You can establish yourself as an independent person. This is the reason why your parents are paying, right? So there is an objective behind when they are making any payments, right? So objectified payment, right? Objectified payment is being there, right? And the objective must be clearly visible. Payment is being made for particular objective, number one. Number two, that objective should be very clear. Number three, against that payment, you may or may not have a liability to return that money with interest or without interest. Okay, you have a liability, right? You have a liability or no liability. When somebody is paying, when somebody is paying for you, right? When somebody is paying for you on your behalf, right? For particular objective, and you may be or may not be liable to return that money with interest or without interest. So few things are very important when we use this term finance. Objective should be very clear. What is an objective? When a grandmother or some relative is giving the money to you, right? So that is a kind of gratitude, right? That is not finance. But when the parents are paying the fee on your behalf, so yes, they are financing your education, they are financing your education. When government is establishing a police station, law and order in your area, right, the objective is not to help you, the objective is to maintain law and order. And for that purpose, government is establishing the police station, government is establishing in the police station, and in that police station they are recruiting police personnel for that police station, right? So in order to maintain the public order, government is establishing law and order enforcement agency like police, and for that they are paying the salary, right? So objective is law, to maintain the law and order. But against that law and order, is government is asking to pay the money? No, government is not asking to pay against that particular thing. Against the means nobody will come to you from the government ki pay this money because we are providing you the police services in your area, we are providing the security in your area, right? So it is an in general purpose by the government. So whenever the term is used finance, you should keep in the mind objective should be clearly defined, number one. Number two, what you have to remember, you may or may not have to return the money, right? You may and may not have to return the money. Fine. And when it is a clause to return that money, maybe that money should be returned with interest or without interest. For example, when government of India is giving loan to the state government, right? So sometimes government will provide the assistance, but sometimes government will provide the loan, right? So that assistance, right? That assistance is a finance by GOI to state government for stated objective. For example, there is a drought in that particular area, there is a natural calamity in that area, so government of India is providing an assistance. So that assistance is going to the state, and in that assistance government of India is giving some money, and that money need not to be returned by the states, right? But objective must be clearly defined why government is giving that money. Whereas when government is giving the loan, government sometimes charge 1% interest or 0.5% interest, and that loan is given for 30 years or 25 years, right? So this is why it's very important the objective should be clearly defined. Number two, these things are optional, return or not return. Number two, with interest or without interest. Sometimes you can see that many of the loans given by the government of India to the state government, later on government has waived off those loans. Government has waived off those loans. And sometimes government also finance their PSUs, public sector enterprises or public sector undertaking, government is financing them also. But government is giving the money on the interest, right? So actually, sir, our assistance and grants are same. No. Assistance, the term assistance we use in the terms of what? It is my discretion. It is my discretion whether I want to give you or not. When the term is used as a grant, so there are some mandatory grants, and some of them they are on the wishes and will of government of India, right? But there are some statutory grants that must be provided to the states as per our constitution. When I will discuss the finance commission and its function, I'll let you know. But as of right now, you have this thing in your mind: assistance is my discretion, right? Means the person who is assisting you, it is his discretion in the assistance he is going to give you the money or not. But in the grants, there are the two categories. One is discretionary grants, right? For example, state of Bihar is asking for what? Special package, right? Special package, because government have this power to provide the special packages to certain states. For example, for the development of jute, government of India can give the grant to the state of West Bengal, right? So for the jute industry development, so that is mentioned in the constitution. So if it is mentioned in the constitution, it is going to be the mandatory, and if it is not mentioned in the constitution, that can be discretionary grants. So sometimes you can say that discretionary grants are also kind of assistance. Fine. So I hope the term finance is clear. The term finance is clear. And before finance, we can put two kind of the prefix. One is private finance, other is public finance. So before finance, we can put either of two prefix. Either it is private finance or it is public finance. So what I explained to you, from there, it is very easy to define private finance. When money is given to you for the certain purpose and you have to return that money with interest in a given time, that is known as a private finance. Whereas the public finance, when government is going to spend the money on public, right, and it is not required for the public to return that money to the government, right? It is not required for the public to return that money to the government, then it is going to be what? Public finance. So if your municipal corporation, if the municipal corporation of your area is running the street cleaning program, right, or they are collecting the garbage, fine, so they are collecting the garbage so that collection of the garbage is a kind of public service, right? It's a kind of public service. So how we define the public service and public finance? Any kind of the service which is provided by the government, and against that public services, in general, you need not to pay. In general, you need not to pay. However, from now we have seen that in certain cases public may have to pay, but that is very little or lump sum no amount, right? In certain cases, why government will ask you to pay, in certain cases, not in all cases, in certain cases, maybe government will ask you to pay for that particular public services. For example, public toilets. There are some public toilets where there is no charges, and you can see what kind of the situation of that public toilet, right? And where the public toilets are chargeable. You can see that, right? You can see that it is more or less in comparison to those free public toilets, it is better maintained, right? And I told you earlier also, if you want to know about know about a country, if you want to know about a country, just go to the public toilets of that particular country. You will get an idea what kind of the people of that country are. It's not me. Somebody said that, and I read that thing in a book, right? And even in the particular area, that area is a posh area, that area is a normal area, or that area is a kind of slum area. It's very easy. Just have a kind of idea of the public toilet in that area. You will immediately get that thing. Whenever you will get an opportunity to go to Delhi, and in Delhi especially where the parliament and all important offices of UPSC and all these things are located, go those areas and just see the public toilet. You will be like, you are going to be shocked. You are going to be shocked when you will see that. You will be like, how it is possible? You will going to have this feeling, how it is possible? Is it public toilet? Seriously, when you will go outside and you will see that somebody is going to ask for money, no. But that is where, that is at the prime location of India, right? So sometimes public services are chargeable, but most of the time public services are not chargeable, right? And to provide those public services to the countrymen, whatever the amount government of India is spending, or state government is spending, or municipal government is spending, that come under the category of public finance. Is it clear? Is it clear? Public finance? The term public finance and public services is clear. Okay. Now, so I told you money spent by government to provide and maintain public services comes under category of public finance. Okay. Okay, fine, good. So money is spent. Money is spent by the government. So in order to spend the money, you must have the money, or if you do not have a money, you have to arrange that money. Fine. So you must have a money, or if you do not have a money, then you must have to arrange the money, right? In order to spend that money. Fine. Now from here, please listen my each and every words very carefully in order to get the bigger picture, right? Maybe these terms are very simple terms, but if you will listen my each and every words very carefully, it will be easier for you to understand the public debt management, right? So government want to spend, right? Government want to spend to provide services, right? Another reason why government is going to spend, and this reason is coming from the very first reason. In the first reason, what I have mentioned, to provide services, right? To provide services, to maintain services. And in order to provide better services and more services, our first objective is what? Our first objective is to provide services. Roti, kapda, and makan, right? Cloth, shelter, and food. Fine. So, food, cloth, and shelter is not just sufficient. We must have to provide the health services. We must have to provide the education services. And not just in education services, quality education services, quality health services. So, for that, what we need? More money. We need money to provide these basic facilities. But in order to provide the facility in the better manner, we need more money, right? So we just not to focus from where we can get the money. From where we can get the money. We should not just focus on from where we can get the money. Our focus should be also on how to increase that money. See, we want to spend and we want to provide the services, we want to provide the better services, and for that we need money, right? So our focus is on to getting the money, right? But getting the money, our focus to getting the money is not going to be sufficient. At the same time, we also have to work so that our ability to get money is going to what? Increase, right? Our ability to get more money is going to increase. That is why when government spend, government just not going to spend to provide services, that is public services. Government is also going to spend to increase sources of income. And this is what we defined as a capital expenditure. and this is what we defined as a revenue expenditure, right? This is what we defined as a revenue expenditure, and this is what we defined as a capital expenditure. So this explains spending, right? Now, whatever the sources of money means, from where government is getting the money, right? We do not use the term income of government. We do not use the term income of government. In official literature, you will never find this term income of the government. In official literature, you always find the term receipts of government, revenue receipts, capital receipts. In unofficial literature like newspaper, magazine, news channels, right? So-called YouTubers, they can use the term income, but officially we do not use the term income when we are studying the public finance, right? Income is a term which is more and more associated with an individual, which is having certain profit motive. Then we can use the income. You can use the term income even for the companies, but not for the government, because the objective of government is not to make a profit. The objective of government is what? Listen very carefully. What is the objective of the government? The objective of government to spend. The objective of government is to spend. Spend for what? To provide better public services, right? And spend to increase the income, or increase the overall income in the country, so that government will get more receipts from taxes and they can spend more. So if government is spending for two purposes. One is to provide the public services. Another spend by the government is for the purpose of increasing overall income in the country, not its own income, increasing the overall income in the country, so that from those incomes government can get more direct and indirect taxes, and that receipts is again going to be spent by the government for providing the better services. Got this point? If you didn't get that, I'll repeat it. But the clarity is very important here. But if I'll say that government is earning, government's income, that means what? When we will use the term income for the government, that means what government is going to do? Government is going to spend some amount and government is going to save some amount. So with the government, we do not use this term government savings. Have you ever heard government savings? So government is not going to earn the money, or government is not going to receive an income, because income is associated always with what? Consumption and savings, right? Whereas when we use the term receipts, we have received the money for the purpose of expenditure. We have received the money for the purpose of expenditure. So that is why in the government literature we do use this term receipts rather than what? Income. Got it? Is it clear? Okay, good. So, as I explained, receipts that can become in the form of tax, fees, fine, right? Taxes, fees, fine, and apart from taxes, fees, and fine, government can get the receipt in terms of dividend paid by PSUs, right? So these are the conventional ways from where government get the money, right? But I told you it is always an tendency of a government to spend more. right? It is always an inherent tendency of government to spend more. Why government want to spend more? To provide the better services, to provide the better employment opportunity. This is the reason why government want to spend. So that means whatever the government is going in terms of fees, tax, fine, dividend is not going to sufficient. So government must have other sources so that government can fund those, or government can finance those expenses, which is revenue expenditure, and capital expenditure, right? And the great John Maynard Keynes especially emphasize on what government should go for: borrowings, right? And government even can go for sales of its assets, right? Okay. Now, if government is going to borrow, then definitely government have to repay principal amount plus interest amount, right? Government have to pay principal amount and interest amount, right? I have a one question for you. Dividend means, see, suppose that there is a company, for example, suppose that there is an SBI. In SBI, government suppose that have 50% holding, just for an example. So SBI, State Bank of India, Government of India is holding 54%. Suppose that our SBI told that for this financial year 2021-2022, our total revenue is 100 rupees, right? Our total revenue is 100 rupees, whereas our total expenditure is 70 rupees. So how much profit? 30. So out of this 30, first you have to pay tax, that is corporate tax. First you have to pay tax. Suppose that tax is 10%. So you have paid tax 10% to the government of India. How much is left? 27 is left. Now out of this 27, that is your net profit. That is profit after taxation. So out of this 27, you have to pay 54% to government. So from PSUs, government is not just getting the tax, government is also getting the share of the profit, because government is having the shareholding in that company. So the amount paid by a company to the shareholder after tax is known as dividend. Right? Is known as dividend. So government is going to get this money in this way. Suppose that, however, so 54% is going to be taken by government. So out of this 27, government will take 54% of this 27 in the form of dividend. Suppose that there is another shareholder in SBI who have 10% shareholding, right? There is another shareholder, suppose that it is A. It is A, and A have 10% shareholding. So after tax, how much profit? 27. So 2.7 is going to be given by SBI to this shareholder A. 2.7 is dividend, right? It's a dividend. And government also have dividend distribution tax. If dividend amount is beyond certain limit, then you have to pay the tax on dividend also, right? So in that way, government will collect the taxes. Sometimes people feel that government taxation is harsh, right? Sometimes people feel that government taxation is harsh. So why government is selling these PSUs when it is getting so much profit? The reason is the reason is all first of all PSUs are not in profit, right? There are the huge number of PSUs were sold out, and they are in huge loss, right? Whereas when we talk about the PSUs who are making profit, right? The PSUs who are making the profit. The point is, a PSU having an asset, 10 refineries, right? A PSU having the 10 refineries, and with that 10 refineries, I'll give you the best example. Just go to the internet and see the capacity of RIL. RIL's capacity to refine. RIL's capacity to refine the crude oil and the capacity of all PSUs combinedly. They are able to refine. So despite having huge amount of assets in terms of workforce, in terms of easy loan provided by the government, all these PSUs are not able to work in their full capacity, right? So we are getting the profit of how much? 30%. Why? Because its revenue is 100, whereas expenditure is 70. If that company is going to be managed by the private firm, maybe this is going to be 500. Clear cut examples are I'll just see the data. I do not have a data right now. Somewhere I have a data, but if you will compare the refining capacity of RIL, Reliance Industries Limited, and the refining capacity of what? Refining capacity of government-backed companies like IOCL, Mangalore Refinery. If you will combine them and combine the capacity of what? RIL. So almost same. There is no huge difference. So this is the reason why it is required to manage these PSUs in the better manner. So this is one of the reason why government want to sell off these PSUs. Right? This is the reason. And regarding tax, it's little bit out of context, but I just want to explain different model of the tax. There is one model TTT and another model is EEE, right? TTT and EEE. There are two kind of extreme models of tax. I'll give an example. You got salary, right? You got the salary and that salary is taxable. That salary is taxable or that salary is non-taxable, right? So income become what? Income either taxed or exempted, right? Then you will go for what? With income you will go for consumption, right? So for example, you are in Delhi, you went to the Agrawal Sweets and you took samosa, right? So you paid for that samosa. One scenario. Another scenario, you went to where? You went to McDonald's to purchase a burger. So the receipt provided by the McDonald's is inclusive of what? Tax. Whereas you paid in the cash or through UPI, tax invoice is not being given by that street shop. Whereas if you will eat that samosa in Haldiram, they will give you the tax invoice. So some consumption are taxable, some consumption are not taxable. So consumption can also be taxable or it may be exempted. You are eating from the street food, maybe that food is not coming under the category of consumption tax, right? So it is exempted. Whereas you are eating in McDonald's or something like restaurant chain, then your consumption is taxed. Whatever is left from consumption, that is comes under the category of savings. So now if your saving is within the limit prescribed by the government is not going to tax it. But if your savings are beyond the limit, it is going to be taxed. So it is the most harsh model where income, consumption, and savings all are taxed, and it is the most liberal model where income, consumption, and savings all are exempted from the tax. Sometimes income is taxed, consumption is exempted, savings is also exempted. TEE. Sometimes income is taxed, consumption is also taxed, but savings are exempted. Right? Third case, all are taxed. Other case, all are exempted. Right? So, as your income is going to increase, right? As your income is going to increase, you will move from this model to this model. As your income is going to increase, as your consumption is going to increase, as your savings are going to increase, you will move from EE to triple T model, right? So no country follow a kind of model where only this or only this exists. It depends upon how much you are earning. It depends upon how much you are consuming. It depends upon how much you are saving. Accordingly, the tax model is going to be implemented by the government in order to receive receipts. Is it clear? This is why I hate this hot water, because when you start drinking hot water, then this is started. Okay, fine, no issues. So for receipts, there is a source known as revenue receipt sources. Revenue receipt sources, whereas borrowing sales of assets, they come under the category of capital receipts. Right? They come under the category of capital receipts. So now there are some issues. There are some issues specifically with respect to taxes and borrowings. There are some issues with respect to taxes as well as borrowing. I'm telling you again and again what is the philosophy of the government. The philosophy of government is to spend. And government is always have a tendency spend more, right? So government is there to spend, and government have a tendency to spend more, right? And for that government need funds, and two basic sources from where government get the money is tax plus borrowings. Now first let's discuss the problem with the tax, right? The problem with the taxation. For that, there was an American economist, Arthur Laffer. So Arthur Laffer has given his theory, and Arthur Laffer in his theory he explained that what he just explained that. Just give me a second. So Laffer in his theory he explained that tax rate and income from that tax, right? Tax rate and income from that tax. So if we discuss tax rate, right? if we will discuss about what? If we will discuss about the tax rate. So if there is no tax rate, there will be no income for the government. So government is going to have some rate of taxation, for example 2%, and then it is going to be 5% or it is going to be 10%. So what will happen initially when government will increase the rate of tax, initially when government will increase the rate of taxation, income from that taxation is going to increase, right? Initially it is going to increase, but after a certain point of time it will start decreasing. It will start decreasing. Why it will start decreasing? Because of the extreme tax. Because of the extreme tax, either people will start doing the theft, right? That is, they are going to do what? They are going to use certain illegal ways how to escape from the tax net. One thing. Another thing which is more dangerous for country's economy, when you are going to put so much tax on your firms in your country, then at a point of time these firms will start moving from your country to other countries, right? Classic example, the growth of China. If you will see the taxation of US government from 1975 to 1985 onwards, US government still have one of the highest taxation in the country, means all over the world. But during this phase, the tax rate was so high, right? And American industrialists, they are feeling the heat. At the same time, China offered SEZ. Under that SEZ, any firm from anywhere in the world, they can come and start up their business. Single window clearance, right? Minimum labor laws, so that it is not required you have to fight with the laborers in the courtroom. Single labor law, single window clearance, and 10 years tax holiday. No tax for next 10 years. So this is why the huge migration was started. Huge migration was started from this country, means from US and Europe, all the manufacturing things. Another reason, in 70s and 80s there was a huge environmental movement even against those polluting firms. So because of all this, lot of firms started moving from US and Europe to where? From US to Europe, they started moving towards China. And this is why China's SEZ policy become very popular. Become very popular, and in the rapid instance of time, they achieve the phenomenal growth. Right. So this curve is known as Laffer curve. So it is very important what should be the optimum tax rate. So in this case, this is the tax rate. In this case, this is the tax rate where the taxable income is highest. If you will decrease the tax rate, your income is going to decrease. If you will increase the tax rate, again your income is going to decrease. So setting a right taxation in a country is a big challenge, right? It is a big challenge. Okay, so one big challenge is to manage the taxation system in a country, right? Second issue is regarding borrowings. When you will borrow, right? When you will borrow, you will spend, and if government is going to borrow and spend, definitely supply of money in the economy is going to increase, and that is going to trigger inflation. And again I'm telling you, inflation is going to severely hit poor people or low income section in comparison to high income section or middle income section, right? So you have to manage borrowing, but at the same time you should clear, there should be no unnecessary rise in the inflation. Number one. Number two reason is, if government is going to borrow too much, then money is not going to be available in the economy for private sector borrowings, right? And this will cause crowding out. This will cause crowding out. Crowding out means those company who are trying to do business in India, when they will found that it is very difficult to get the money. Why? Because most of the amount is being borrowed by the government. So the interest rate for private sector in your economy is going to be high, and high interest rate will cause low profitability for private firms. So private firms will start moving out of your country, right? So borrowings of the government must be managed properly, right? Borrowings of the government must be managed properly. So when we say, I'll explain here. When we say public finance, so under public finance there is expenditure part, that is revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. And in order to fulfill that expenditure, we have revenue receipts and capital receipts. Capital receipts basically borrowings, right? Revenue receipts basically coming from tax. Revenue expenditure, health, education, other public services. Capital expenditure, infrastructure. Infrastructure. Sir, but how there is a global corporate tax incorporating? Global corporate tax is incorporating worldwide. So that means no country could give the tax holiday kind of. No. Tax holiday can be given, but it cannot be misused. For that, it is little bit complicated, right? For that, you must know what is base erosion and profit shifting. That is BEPS, base erosion and profit shifting. You must know the BEPS. You must know the Google tax, right? So a lot of things are there. I will discuss later in detail, but right now just focus here regarding what we are discussing about the public finance part. That will be discussed later. Fine, that will be discussed later. So now here the tax, here the borrowing. I told you what problems are associated with the taxation in the country. What problems are associated with the taxation in the country. And I also told you about what are the problems associated with the borrowings. Right. So this part of public finance is having some issues. Right. We have to manage it properly. Same time, now we have a money from revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. So some economist like Amartya Sen, he suggests government should go for more and more revenue expenditure. Means he is suggesting government should spend more and more money on what? Government should spend more and more money on health, education, public services, so that people, the common people or the most vulnerable section of your population, it is going to be what? It is going to get good services, and that is going to help in human development. So government must spend. Just give me a minute. Today my throat is not allowing me. Who made this rule? If you have a sore throat and you are facing some issue, you have to drink the hot water. So hot water is pathetic. Chilled water is good. So, okay. So Amar Sen philosophy is very clear. Government must focus on revenue expenditure. Why? If government is going to spend lot of money on health, education, and other public services, human development will be there. Then government need not to facilitate all those things. Once the people become capable, right? So that is why his approach is known as capability approach, right? So he insists government should spend more and more money on capability development of normal human beings. Once the capability will be developed, people are automatically going to able to earn and sustain, right? Whereas the counter approach is saying that okay, fine, we do understand that government must have to spend a lot of money on health, education, and all, and no need not to spend more money on other things. But the question is to spend more money on health, education, and other services. What you are telling, from where you will get the money? You want to spend, fine, we will spend, but tell me from where you are going to get the money, right? If the country is not going to have a good infrastructure, then how you are able to do that thing? See the growth of China. So before 1970s and after 1970s. So before 1970s, China was spending a lot of money on this revenue expenditure, but they are not able to have such a good growth in the human development if you will compare after 1970. Because after 1970, China has started spending huge amount of money on infrastructure, and from there government started getting more money, right? Similarly, in the case of India, if you will compare the case of India from 1991 to 2021, right? From 1991 to 2021, this 30 years, right? And from 1961 to 1991, right? This 30 years. And the percentage, see the percentage of poverty alleviation, right? How government was able to efficiently remove the poverty. So here the rate is very fast, means government is able to reduce the poverty in the better manner in comparison from this phase. And what is the difference between these two phases? Here your economy is more open and is spending huge amount of money on this thing also. So in economics, we didn't go for ki you are right or you are wrong. We always go for critical approach. Nobody is God. In economics, nobody is God. We always think in the critical manner, right? If it is said by Amartya Sen, or if it is said by Jagdish Bhagwati, or it is said by Raghuram Govindarajan, it doesn't mean that it is true or false, right? It may be right or it may be wrong, right? So the approach of Amartya Sen was countered by another Indian genius, and his name is Jagdish Bhagwati. His name is Jagdish Bhagwati, and he countered this approach. So the present government generally work on this model, Jagdish Bhagwati's model, and it is known as Bhagwati versus Amartya Sen debate in the economics. Amartya Sen is still emphasizing on what? Amartya Sen is still emphasizing, and he got the Nobel Prize. He didn't. Now, question is why Amartya Sen is having more relevance than Jagdish Bhagwati. The point is, okay, fine, whatever the Bhagwati Sahab is saying, he is saying spend more money on the infrastructure. Fine. Spend more money on the infrastructure so that your income avenues will be increased, so that you can spend more money on health and education. But at the same time, what we have seen, what we have seen is your income is increased. Your income is increasing with what? Your country's GDP in last 30 years. In last 30 years, your country's GDP is on an average increasing 6 to 8% in last 30 years. But if you will see the rate of reduction in the poverty, that is poverty alleviation, right? The poverty alleviation rate is just 2 to 4%. Yes, still it is higher than these 30 years from 1960 to 1991. Yes, it is higher than this. Means here our poverty alleviation was 1 to 2%. Here it is 2 to 4%. Means we are able to decrease the poverty in the faster rate. But the point is the rate with you are increasing your GDP, it is 6 to 8% on an average. By that thing, India should not have the poverty. If India is able to grow by this rate, India must have only 2 to 5% poverty. But still around 20% population, 20 to 25% population of India is under the poverty. Right. So this is why Amartya Sen's theory has given a new way and path to emphasize on more and more public spending. Right. So this is why he got Nobel Prize for his remarkable approach of what? Capability development approach. Fine. Yes, HDI, Human Development Index. And irony was Human Development Index was developed by Amartya Sen and Mehboob Haq. Mehboob Haq, Pakistani economist and Indian economist, they have created this Human Development Index. But the contribution of Amartya Sen was exceptional, and for his original contribution for capability development approach, he got the Nobel Prize. Right. So, what is the point of discussing this thing here is that in public finance, in public finance, we have to manage what? We have to manage our revenue expenditure, our capital expenditure, our revenue receipts, and capital receipts. We must have to create a fine balance among all of them, right? From where we are going to spend the money, from where we are going to get the money. So that fine balance kind of creating a policy, right? The policy which is trying to create a balance so that it can be not hurt other sectors of economy, other things of the government. We will call this as a fiscal policy. Fiscal policy. And in this fiscal policy, management of borrowings, management of borrowings is very crucial. Management of borrowings is very crucial because borrowings are like double-edged sword, right? It's a double-edged sword. At a time, it will push the capital expenditure in your country, income generation in your country, but at the same time, it has also a negative effect of what? Rising inflation and crowding out kind of the situation. So that is why historically, historically, this borrowing part should not be managed by the government. It should not be managed by the government because I told you what government have a tendency is to spend more and more. So government may be sometimes going to overlook what part? Overlook the part of rising inflation part, right? Rising inflation part, maybe government may be overlook. So it is not ideal to allow the government, it is not ideal to allow the government to manage borrowing from himself. So that is why we do have central banks, and central banks are generally known as government bank in the context of managing government borrowing, right? So who manage public debt in India? GOI or RBI? Who manages public debt in India? GOI or RBI? No, it is RBI. RBI manages the public debt. RBI manages the public debt means for the government borrowing is managed by whom? RBI, right? For government, it is RBI which manages the borrowing for the government. And see, this is a little bit different thing. Means in order to explain you properly, I'm just going to just analyze the psychological behavior of people who are in government. Psychological behavior of people who are in government. Most of the political people who run the government as a minister, right? Throughout their life, what they did, everybody know that, right? So most of the time, they do not have an expertise, they do not have a proper knowledge to run the government, right? Most of the time, right? So they are largely dependent on whom? Their efficient bureaucrats, right? So actually, these efficient bureaucrats run that thing, right? So suppose a political party is there, right? Who The political party is there, that political party is refrained from the power for a long time, right? So long time they are refrained from the power, and because they are refrained from the power for long time, their politicians do not have an expertise how to run the government, right? Just understand very carefully. So their political people do not have an experience how to run the government, and all of a sudden in 2014 you got an opportunity to run the government solely on you. Though you got an opportunity in 1999, in 1999 till then 2004 you got an opportunity, but that was a kind of milli juli sarkar, right? The solo government was not there, right? It was a government of what? It's a government of many political parties. So you do not have this thing, and the people who run the government in 1999 to 2005, most of the people are not available to run the government here. That is why when government has started working here, the role of the bureaucrats was increased in the very immense manner. And you can see that in 2019, when government was about to take the oath, when government was about to take an oath, a former foreign secretary was sitting next to the prime minister. Our present foreign minister, S. Jaishankar, what was he? He was a foreign secretary. But during this phase from 2014 to 2019, he was a mastermind of Indian foreign policy. He has guided the prime minister because prime minister and foreign minister Sushma Swaraj was there. But Sushma Swaraj was basically involved in all kind of the helping people of India outside the India. Actual foreign policy was commanded by whom? Subramaniam Jaishankar. And that is why government has awarded him by making him as a finance minister, foreign minister, right? Whereas in the finance department, Arun Jaitley was a seasoned politician, and he was a minister of corporate affairs even during the Atal Bihari government. So that's why automatic choice was what? Automatic choice was to make him the finance minister, right? So what I mean to say is, when some good politician who have very good knowledge about how to run the system, then there will be obviously a clash between government and RBI. then definitely there will be a clash. Why? Because those efficient people who are in the government, right? They feel that ki I am better knowledge and equipped with each and everything, so I can handle it. There is no need for the RBI to handle that thing. We can handle it, right? So, classic example when Chitambram Sahab was the finance minister. Chitambram is one of the efficient finance minister ever India have. One of the efficient. I'm not saying the most efficient, but one of the most efficient finance minister India ever have. That was of P. Chitambram. He has introduced a lot of reforms in our country, especially in the tax policy. So when he was heading that area, right? So there was a clash between GOI and RBI regarding management of the borrowing. And government has set up an agency, and this agency means a committee, sorry. Committee was set up, and government has asked the committee, is it required to have a separate organization to manage government debt? Is it required to have a separate agency to manage the government debt, or is RBI is sufficient? So committee came with the 50-50 kind of solution. Committee said that first of all, RBI is already overburdened, right? RBI is overburdened, so for RBI managing the government debt is a not right thing. But at the same time, if that thing is going to be managed by the government, it is also going to create a problem. So let's have a separate agency which incorporates both people, government people and RBI people, to manage this thing, right? To manage this thing, and that is why they recommended Public Debt Management Agency. Committee has recommended Public Debt Management Agency should be there to manage debt and all, right? However, RBI has protested in a very large manner, right? RBI has protested in a very large manner. So that is why this Public Debt Management Agency is still in a draft phase, and still RBI is managing the debt of government of India. But sooner or later, that is going to be the reality. That is going to be the reality, that is for sure. Government for a long time, definitely they are going to establish this PDMA, Public Debt Management Agency. Is only for borrowings. Is it clear what I explained you? Is it clear? So, what is public debt and public debt management agency, and this public finance, fiscal policy? So, most of the things are clear, right? Few details regarding PDMA is with me. I will discuss it tomorrow, and it needs 5 to 10 minutes to wind up. Then we will start new topic. Okay. So for today, I am winding up the session. Thank you very much for listening me patiently. Right. In between, there's a lot of disturbance. I was coughing kind of the thing. But okay. So we will meet tomorrow. Fine. Thank you.